Good morning and welcome to our Coffee with session today. I'm delighted to have Stefan Gisler-Solvang, Director of Public Affairs at External Communications at Innargi, joining me for an insightful conversation. Innargi is a pioneer in the field of geothermal energy, making strides in advancing sustainable solutions for district heating. In recognition of their groundbreaking work, Innargi was also awarded the 2024 German-Danish Newcomer of the Year award by the German-Danish Chamber of Commerce. In our session, we'll explore the fundamentals of geothermal energy and its application in district heating, examine project development perspectives in both Germany and Denmark, and discuss the critical topic of societal acceptance and sustainability. This promises to be an interesting discussion about the role of geothermal energy in the green transition. My name is Andreas Wenzel, and I look forward to diving into these topics with Stefan over the next 30 minutes. As always, feel free to post any question in the chat and we'll address them during the Q&A session at the end. The story of Innargi exemplifies the potential of geothermal energy to revolutionize district heating. With its roots in innovative technology and a commitment to sustainability, Innargi is actively shaping the future of energy systems in Denmark and also in Germany. The unique business model of Innargi, which assumes the financial risk for customers and utilities by requiring cash flow only after heat is delivered, underscores their dedication to fostering accessible and impactful energy solutions. These are the themes that will actually guide our conversation today. So, good morning again, Stefan. Great to have you here.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the basics, because not everyone might understand what we are actually about. What exactly is geothermal energy and how is it applied in district heating systems?
Well, we exploit the endless energy source that is in the core of our planet.
Yeah.
It's there and it will be there forever, at least in human terms. And what we do is we drill down between 1.5, 2.5 kilometers, and then we pump up the hot water that you can find in the subsurface. Mm-hmm. And then we harvest the heat from the geothermal water, mm-hmm. and through a heat exchanger we apply it to the district heating grid and the district heating water. And thereby you can use it as a renewable and green, and it's a fantastic energy source.
And it's very interesting, but to me, to understand better, do I need certain geology? Do I need certain temperature levels at a certain depth? What does it actually mean?
Well, of course, the hotter the water is, the better is, the more energy it holds.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
For instance, the project that we develop in Aarhus for the time being, we have a water source which is about 70 degrees. Mm-hmm. For the district heating water is a little higher temperature, so we need to use heat pumps to elevate the temperature a little bit. Mm-hmm. And of course, water is not found everywhere in the subsurface, so you need to have certain geological formations. And we are very lucky in Denmark and in the northern part of Germany, as well as Poland, that geologically it is quite similar.
Okay.
So the conditions for geothermal energy in these three regions are very, very good.
Okay, I see. And what is approximately the depth of how deep you need to drill to get reasonable results? Obviously, it depends on the location, it depends on the geology, but what are the ranges you're working with?
The ranges that we are aiming for are typically between 1,500 meters and 2.5 kilometers. In Aarhus, it's about 2.5 kilometers, but you can also find reasonable sources at a lower depth, at around 1,500 meters.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
Because the deeper you go, the harder it is to extract the water, because the pressure is higher. Yeah. So you can compensate on that because you have better what we call flow rates. Yeah. If you don't drill as deep. So it depends on where you find the best resource.
Yeah, absolutely. And I assume the deeper you need to drill, the more expensive it gets at the end of the day.
Cost is, of course, an important issue in that respect as well.
And you mentioned the project in Aarhus. How much of a percentage are you actually contributing then to the district heating system in Aarhus with the geothermal energy you're feeding into the system?
Once we are done with the project in Aarhus, in this in full-phased project, we are delivering 20% of the heating demand in Aarhus. So it's quite a significant contribution.
But then again, it depends on the project, it depends on the scale of the heat pump,
Yes.
depends on the municipality, on the geology you have, which kind of ratio you can actually feed into the system with geothermal energy.
Yeah, geothermal energy cannot solve all our climate issues. I think that's also important to say. Some people believe, well, if we can find a geothermal resource, then we can have 100% geothermal energy. And that's actually not the case.
Yeah.
Geothermal energy can deliver the base load for the district heating grid. So instead of burning fossil fuels, instead of burning gas from Russia or LNG from the United States, you can use that as a base load, and that's where the geothermal is super efficient.
Yeah. What would you say would be the most obvious advantages of using geothermal in district heating, and what are the challenges you're actually fighting with?
Well, I think the advantages are numerous. Which are the biggest advantages depends on which market you're in. If you look at the Danish market, we have a lot of biomass, and we cannot continue to burn wood pellets. It's even though it's technically it's CO2 neutral, then there are a lot of CO2 emissions by burning the biomass, and that is actually why Aarhus has chosen to go geothermal, because they want to get rid of their wood pellets. So that's one thing. In other countries, in other markets, in Poland for instance, it's a lot about pollution, because they're still burning a lot of coal, so it creates a lot of pollution and bad air. So that's a significant topic. In Germany, we all know they are talking about the Wärmewende. We need to decarbonize, and we need to do that all over Europe. And you can't do that without geothermal, because even though we are all dreaming of green hydrogen, it'll still be quite a few years before that's realized. Secondly, we need so much electricity for hydrogen, and we need other energy sources. So all the renewable energy sources you can find, we have to do that.
Yeah, we need, at the end of the day, we need a balance, a mix of different sources of green energy that we can use. Yeah.
And speaking of other advantages, it's noise-free, it's emission-free, it doesn't smell, and you can say, okay, well, solar and wind doesn't smell too, but you also have biogas, so you can actually apply it in a suburban area or in an urban area, and we don't need a lot of space either.
Yeah, so, that's an interesting point. Yeah.
So the disadvantages, not to just sugarcoat everything, is that it takes some time to drill the well. It takes some month, depending on how many wells we have to drill. Yeah. In Aarhus, for instance, we were drilling for 90 days and doing 3 wells. But after that, we only have a little bit of construction left, and then it's noise-free. So the neighbors will then not be disturbed by our presence.
Yeah, interesting. And you already mentioned the Aarhus project, and you also referred to Poland, for instance. Why is it specifically advantageous for Poland? Speaking a bit about Germany and the German Wärmewende, obviously demand for heat in Germany is also huge. Germany has embarked on a process to decarbonize living, to decarbonize heat. How much of a potential do you see in Germany for geothermal as one of the elements to feed into district heating system?
Well, the technology that we use, where we focus on hot water in this type of geology, there is huge potential. If you look at a city like Berlin, it holds the largest district heating grid in Western Europe. It's far bigger than the grid in Copenhagen, for instance. Berlin also needs to decarbonize. There are 95% of the heat comes from fossil fuels in Berlin still today.
Wow.
So the need for a green or renewable resource or fossil-free resource is huge. And that goes for most of the German cities as well. If you look actually, and I think that's a fact that sometimes is forgotten, that in southern Germany, in Bavaria, around Munich, there is actually a lot of geothermal already. They have a completely different geology, so they have higher water temperatures. They also drill deeper, but they are able to produce power and heating at the same time. Okay. So I think it's a great thing for Bavaria, but unfortunately, in the northern part of Germany, we don't have the same resource. So we need to look elsewhere.
Yeah. So what perspectives do you actually see to apply your technology in the German market? I know you're very busy, you're very active to develop projects in Germany. What are the perspectives you are seeing? You spoke a bit about southern Germany having a more advantageous geology and also a deeper history, I would say, more experiences when it comes to geothermal. So where do you see your perspectives in Germany in this regard? How could you contribute to the Wärmewende?
Well, if you mentioned earlier our business model, where we actually take the financial risk and the operational risk, and I think that has been the blocker for developing geothermal at a large scale so far in the market, because it is very costly to do the initial investments, and once the facility is there, the operational costs are really low and they are very stable. But the risk is, of course, that you don't find the water resource, even though we have a lot of technology and we are advanced and skilled as human beings now. It is still mining, and mining is risky.
Sure.
So
that means despite all the pre-feasibility and feasibility studies you're doing, it could still be the case that it looks interesting, but then you're drilling and you don't find what you actually aim to find.
And that has been actually the case, for instance, in Hamburg, where the Stadtwerke, the Hamburger Energiewerke, have been doing a geothermal project. They were aiming for one depth and hoping to find water there, which they didn't. Fortunately, they found it at another depth, not as deep as they thought. Same has been the case in Potsdam, just south of Berlin. So that is a risk, and we are hoping that by having this business model where we take over the financial risk, the Stadtwerke, the utility companies, can actually see the advantage, because it is, I wouldn't say risk-free, because of course they have to plan their energy planning and transition planning. But that is the biggest perspective for us, at least. So we are aiming for the bigger cities in the northern part of Germany, where they have big district heating grids, because that's another thing. You need to have district heating grid,
need the
because otherwise you don't have
if you start from scratch, then it will actually be very cost intensive. That's clear. So
of course we are also looking at the German politicians and their plans to expand the district heating grid. We have had, I mean, if you follow German politics, you will know that there was this huge discussion in Germany last year. What about individual boilers? Can I install a gas boiler in my house, or should I wait for a district heating grid to be expanded? And of course, that's something that not only we in Innargi, but the Danish energy sector, district heating energy sector, is following closely, because we have such strong competences within district heating here in Denmark.
And these points will again appear on the agenda of a future German government. That's
we hope so, at least.
Clear.
Let's see how it ends.
That's obviously clear. So from your perspective, you are very kind of like interested in further developing geothermal as a source for district heating in Germany.
Yeah, that's true. And I also want to mention that the geology in Poland is also suitable for this. So we are also active in Potsdam and Łódź and other Polish cities where they have the same issue as in Germany. They have even more coal-fired plants. So they have.
But I assume there they have a larger infrastructure in terms of district heating.
Yeah,
from
but
the-
if you go to East Germany, you will also find
Yeah.
cities with a lot of district heating grids.
Yeah, it depends on the history also.
Sure.
We have also received some questions, and I would like to bring them in already. One question is, how do you actually work with intellectual property? For example, in relation to competition and investors. So how do you protect your technology and your intellectual property, or how do you see it in this respect?
Well, the interesting part is that we are not using any groundbreaking technologies. It's known technologies. We're not. It's not like green hydrogen where you have to develop a new technology to do, or CCS, carbon capture and storage, where you also are working with experimental technologies. Geothermal is well known. We are a company which has been founded by Maersk, AP Møller, Maersk Holding. So many of my colleagues, they are from either Maersk Drilling or Maersk Oil and Gas, and so the competences that these companies have gathered over decades. When they drilled for oil and gas, they may not have found oil and gas, but what they always found was hot water. So they are used to dealing with the water, also re-injecting it when you have harvested all the heat. So it's not about intellectual properties. That's not really an issue, because obviously we are trying to refine the processes. But it's not a new technology as such.
So the two of us, we could also decide to drill for hot water, and we get somewhere. But I would
if we had enough money,
okay, that's something we need to take care of. But I assume that also your knowledge is more into the project development, also kind of like the planning and the controlling of the project. For example, what kind of best ratio in terms of cost benefit do I actually add into the system? Because obviously I can drill deeper, I can invest more, then I will get more hot water, but sure, there is a certain cost benefit, a sweet spot that you'll try to approach. I think there is intellectual property in it.
Yes, I think one thing that's very important to understand is that district heating companies and utilities, they are used to ordering a gas-fired or biomass-fired plant, and then someone comes and build it, and then they say thank you, they pay for it, and then they operate for 30 years. And I think that's one of the hurdles that we have experienced, especially in Germany, that the utility companies are used to being in control of their own assets. And what we are saying is, we know how to build the facility, but the real issue is about operating it for 30 years. Looking after and taking care of for 30 years is not trivial. That's where the cookie crumbles.
And always operating it at an optimum.
Yes. So what we are looking for is to find, of course, the lowest price we can offer the customers, because we need to be competitive. So the more attractive the price is that we can offer the district heating company, the better product we have. So that's how it works.
Very interesting. So we have received a lot of other questions, so we need to work through them. One maybe easy one. Is it possible to visit the construction site in Aarhus?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. So you need to contact Stefan, and then we can take a tour there. When will you be finished there in terms of, from when is it operational?
We expect it to be in operation in the fall this year already. And actually, compared to other projects, it's, and I think coming back to the previous question about intellectual property and so on, usually geothermal projects have been developed by one Stadtwerk. So one city building one facility, and then that's it. Having all the child diseases in this technology, in this in a project. And what we do is to say we are doing numerous projects So we learn from every project, so we can scale it. We can also scale it when we order long lead items, which are the piping and all the equipment that you need for it.
Yeah.
So that way we can drive down costs,
Yeah.
and we gather experience, so we don't repeat the same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah, yeah. Super. We have some other questions also on the challenges. We're coming back to them in a minute, but there's one question related to the point you mentioned right now. Does Innargi actually work directly with individual component vendors for the plant in all the phases of the project? So there seems to be someone interested in partnering with you, being a supplier to you. How does it work?
We are contracting with a lot of sub-suppliers, different sub-suppliers in the drilling game and in the district heating industry as well.
Yeah. So again, we can contact Stefan on this. And obviously we need to speak.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Well, I was just thinking of one thing about visiting the site, because I think that is actually an interesting thing, because when you visit the drilling site, you won't really find anything, because and I guess that's one of the points about geothermal. You can't really see it. We have it's called a Bohrkeller in German, so you have a drilling basement, I would say in English, and that's about it. So the place where we had a huge 34-meter high drilling rig using 4,500 square meters of space with all kinds of piping and stuff. Now there's hardly anything. There's just a big, nice spot, and we can deliver the plot that we used for it back to the
which is also nice and convincing, to see and actually to see how is it actually working in operations. But we need to go back to the challenges, because there were also questions regarding the challenges. The one point is, are there any risks associated? Obviously, people are considering drilling holes. Some might have the whole idea of fracking in their background, in their heads. Are there any risks related? One might have heard about micro earthquakes, or I don't know what. Are there risks related to society when it comes to geothermal?
No, the technology that we use, and in the geology where we operate in sandstone. So the water that we are looking for is actually in the small pores of the stone itself. So we are not fracking. We don't need to frack. So in that aspect, we don't have that risk of small earthquakes that has been linked to geothermal a few decades ago, especially in the southern part of Germany, where you had one or two incidents, which has been very infamous.
And what's the difference to your kind of like approach?
They are, I'm not a geologist, but as I understand it, they are drilling in carbonates, so it's a completely different ball game. So the geology that we are drilling in, we don't need to fracture the stone as such, and hence we don't have that risk of fracking. And then if you look at the disadvantages, you could say that, and I think that's also relating to the topic that you mentioned in the beginning, about how we deal with neighbors and explain to them what we do. You will see that the drilling process is noisy. We have a drilling rig, and it's 24/7. It will drill for 24/7. And not always as intense. Some of the processes are more noisy than others. It's not the drilling noise that you kind of imagine maybe from the metro drilling in Copenhagen, where all the houses were standing and trembling like this. That's
you're basically drilling small holes. You're not drilling
first of all, we're drilling holes that are kind of this big in the beginning, and then smaller and smaller. And it's 2.5 kilometers down in there. So that's not the noise. The noise is coming from the elevator going up and down. From the rig.
This is like 2 to 3 months depending on the project.
Yes, and that's what we explain to people, and we try to be transparent. So we tell the neighbors, okay, so next week we'll be very active with the elevator, so you will be.
You will realize a certain.
And unfortunately, it's not just a cost issue. You could say, can't you just drill during daytime? and then be quiet at night. No, unfortunately not. Also for technical reasons, you need to keep drilling.
Yeah, it needs to be a continuous process.
Yeah, exactly.
You cannot just stop. Yeah. There's one other point about, and one other question about the challenges linked to geothermal, and I'm trying to understand the question. Like in the CO2 discussion, where the minimal contribution of mankind's CO2 is seen to change climate, what is the impact simulation of geothermal energy, which is not endless? So basically we are taking hot water, we are sending cold water down. Are we actually also contributing to changing the system down there, and will it be endless or not?
Yeah, again, I'm not a geologist, but what I learned from my colleagues is that in a human perspective, it is, you could say, endless, or at least an unlimited resource. Of course, the important task that the geologists do in my company is that they find the reservoirs. That's what you call it. It's not that you find like a big hole and pot of water in the subsurface, but you find layers, geological layers of sandstone, which contains water. Yeah. And you need, of course, to consider very thoroughly how thick is that layer, and how big is it. Because if it's not thick enough or big enough, then you will not drill down, because you need to be sure that you have a resource which will provide you
of
with
a certain
water
volume
for at least 30 years. That's what we promise our customers, that we will operate and also decommission the facility. That's all part of the contract for at least 30 years.
Yeah, interesting perspectives. What are But you said, like Munich, for instance, they have a history of using geothermal.
Yes.
How old are the installations in Munich? Do you know?
I'm not an expert in Munich, but I would say they have been working on this for at least 20 years. And they have had a lot of struggles in the beginning, and as has...
Due to their geology there.
Yeah, but also just through the technology. Even though drilling technology has been known for many years, it is not trivial. So we are confident that we are gonna open the facility and deliver first heat to Aarhus in the autumn. Yeah,
that will be very interesting to see. When Aarhus is operational, we'll sure visit also as the German-Danish Chamber of Commerce to see for ourselves.
Will make sure that you are invited for the grand opening.
What is actually happening over there in Aarhus. And then again, we'll wish you all the best for your future project development in Germany. I think indeed that geothermal can be very relevant as a feed source for district heating systems in Germany for the so-called Wärmewende, specifically with the interesting business model you're proposing, 2 Stadtwerke and 2 companies who actually operate the district heating system. So having said that, I would like to thank you very much, Stefan, for your insightful insights today, for the discussion we've enjoyed, and we'll sure follow the story of Innargi not only in Denmark but also specifically in Germany.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Stefan. And I would also like to thank you for joining us today. I would very much also want to invite you for our next Coffee With on the 22nd of March, again at 8:30. And I would dare to say it will be a special edition of a Coffee With. We will have Lücke Fries talking with me about the outcome of the German federal election. And I'm sure this is something you wouldn't want to miss, to hear our assessment on that and how the German election and the formation of a new German government will actually impact on German-Danish economic relations. So again, thank you for joining us today, and see you on March 26 at 8:30 when we're having a coffee together with Lücke Fries.